Well, good evening. Welcome to our Facebook Live tonight on building healthy relationships for stronger families. And before I start talking about this, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. So we acknowledge the Gay-Magal people, part of the Eora Nation, as the traditional owners and the custodians of the land upon which we work and recover. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Hospitals at Freshwater and that beautiful beach is at the end of the street. We're very blessed to work and some of us have the opportunity to live around the area as well. So tonight we're talking about building healthy relationships within families. And so I want to talk first of all about families generally. I want to just cover quickly what we're going to talk about tonight. So the importance of healthy relationships within families and the impact they have on our overall well-being. The challenges that we face in maintaining healthy relationships within the family system. What is a healthy relationship? Many of us don't know that. And I want to discuss elements of healthy relationships and the parts that make that up, like communication, trust, respect and boundaries. Ways to strengthen family connections and foster a supportive environment over the years. Practical tips for effective communication and conflict resolution within families and strategies for navigating disagreements, transitions and external stresses, and we all have those. So firstly, let me talk about families. Families that I'm talking about this evening come in all shapes and sizes. Whether you're born into a heteronormative world and you now are partnered with a same-sex partner, we are including all families, because families today in 2024 may be gay, may be straight, may be queer, may be non-binary, and families in and of themselves can be very different to what they were when I was being raised a very long time ago in a very white Australia. So when I'm talking about families, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not necessarily just talking about mum and dad and two kids. I'm talking about all the different flavours and colours that we have in families today. So I guess where I'd like to start is, the dysfunctional family system. The rules of the dysfunctional family is don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And we can often not necessarily, although it's South Pacific, we deal a lot with addiction and trauma. We also deal with codependency, anxiety and depression, and many difficulties that we're experiencing in our family systems, whether it's a family of origin or family of creation. Those are the things that will show up when we're not coping very well and we're not managing to get some traction with the people in our lives that we call family. So the traits of for healthy families, let's talk about the green flags. Now I often talk to clients about don't paint the red flags green. So let's just talk about the green ones first of all. When we're talking about green flags, we're talking about sitting in a space where we have conflict modelling, conflict being modelled in a healthy way. Now we all have conflict. As many of you know, anger in and of itself is a functional emotion. And you'd not be surprised to know how many clients say to me, well, I don't get angry. It's like not what I do. And I think, well, where does it go? Like it's not disappearing. It's in there somewhere. And you know as well as I do, if you're in that camp of I don't get angry, then it will come out sideways in some way. And in fact, I was talking to a client today who was talking about having access to anger functionally. And then she said the interesting thing for her was that when she started to allow herself to get angry about something, It was something she had no control over and no power over, and that's part of the reason she was angry. What she got after that was quite a bit of sadness. And anger can be one of those emotions that covers a lot of other emotions. So conflict being modelled in a healthy way. Now, if you've got a family of origin system where your parents and your caregivers were unable to talk about their emotions and be authentic in how they felt, primarily because they were not taught how to do that, they will then model to you that they don't have boundaries, their self-esteem isn't healthy, and so they won't have limits and boundaries. They'll have sort of walls and rigid rules. So there's a lot of different ways that we can have a healthy relationship and a healthy family, and there's a lot of ways that we can't. So if we come back to the healthy ones, what we're talking about is having open communication, no fear of judgment when we're sharing with our family, perhaps a view that's different to what everybody else in the family believes. And we can have some rigorous debate around that. I'm not saying we can't do that. We can, we acknowledge that that we're not in denial about the fact that there's difference between us. So we will be able to speak up in a way that is healthy. So communication is open but contained. And I had a client yesterday ask me, what does contained mean? I had to stop and think. I thought, well, it really means being able to express myself functionally, being able to speak my own truth and pause and hear yours. And not think I'm immediately wrong because mine is different to yours. Just go, oh, that's curious that we can agree to disagree on that. So there's a lot of ways that we can contain and yet be open at the same time. The other thing I want to say about healthy relationships is that we'll respect emotional and physical boundaries. Now, because I'm talking on behalf of South Pacific, we work with the model of developmental immaturity. And when I'm talking about the open communication, I'm really talking about healthy self-esteem. That fact that from within us, I feel so assured of my worth in the world and my value in the world that I can speak up, that I can be open about what's happening. And I'm not saying it to upset you or hurt you or cause you distress. I'm just saying it because that's my truth today. Now, the other thing about that is my truth might change. I'm entitled to change my opinion and my perception as I go on. But healthy self-esteem is critical for me to be able to have the open communication in the first place. People will often say to me, well, how do I get healthy self-esteem? Like I feel like I'm in my less than a lot of the time. And I will often say we do esteemable acts for ourselves first. We don't run around doing everything for everyone else. It's like, what do I need to do to take care of myself? Not in a selfish and overarching way, but in a way that I'm of value to the other people in my life that I love. So the emotional and physical boundaries are very important, and it models, if we're raised in a family system, and we in fact are parents ourselves now, where we can do the emotional work that we need to do as adults, and we can model empathy and control, self-control, and appropriate behaviours in response to emotions and stressors. Children do what they see. You can tell a child for the next 20 years, don't do, with the finger going. If we don't model it, they won't get it. Wendy's just posted, boundaries changed my life. They did change mine too. Costa, thank you. Lying is a form of sarcasm, yes. Peter, thank you for pointing out the Inner Child Therapy Homecoming book, Reclaiming and Championing Your Inner Child by John Bradshaw. Bradshaw's amazing. He was the one that coined the phrase. Guilt said, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am a mistake. I think it was a powerful statement that he made. His books are very good. The second thing I want to talk is when I see each family member as an individual with their own opinion, and that's coming back to self-esteem, when I can respectfully allow them to express their opinions, when I can learn how to laugh at myself and to see the funny side of things, and to know that within myself and within that I play a role in the system. Also, the dependency needs, the adverse childhood experiences came to the understanding, I think it was in 2006, that there were 9 dependency needs that children had. It was a bit of a shock to me when I read this, because I thought there was only food, clothing and shelter. I discovered there was emotional nurturing, physical nurturing, education, medical attention, dental attention and spiritual direction. Now, I didn't get a lot of those, so I was really not in a position to be appropriately dependent, so I would be either, at one end, which is too vulnerable, or invulnerable. Most of the time I was invulnerable back in the day, and I had to do a lot of work to work out what my needs were. And again, I said in the lecture I gave on Monday at the hospital, if I said to most of you, what do you need? You'd go, unless you've done a whole bunch of recovery, you'd go, I don't know what I need. Well, think about it, because needs are very different to wants. Most of the time we get what we want, but we don't get what we need because we don't know what we need. Classically, as you all know, we say a lot at the hospital, I'm perfectly imperfect. And if we're not allowed to be imperfect as children because our parents were not allowed to be, or they expect us to be and they're not. I mean, I came from an alcoholic home, so nobody in my family origin was perfect, but they sort of expected me to be perfect when they were just being appalling. But I was not, so I never lived in reality. And so that sense of feeling safe and secure, being able to learn and grow at my own pace, and being allowed to make mistakes and it being okay. And again, there's often this concept for us that we should get it all right. We've never done anything, we're approaching something we've never done before, we want to do it perfectly. And then, of course, there's those of us who will say, well, I'm not going to do anything if I can't do it perfectly the first time. Is there a source that the 9 dependency needs come from? Yes, adverse childhood experiences. It's a report. If you Google it, you'll find it, Leah. So love is unconditional, but when you live in a family system where you're not allowed to be imperfect, it becomes conditional. And when we're in that space, we're flip-flopping between bad, rebellious and good, perfect. So if we're in the good, perfect, we're in the people-pleasing and perfectionism. And if we're in the bad, rebellious, well, we're usually in some form of addiction or serious mood disorder where we're not actually caring that we've gone home for 3 days and put the doona over our head and turned our phone off and wondered why everyone's upset because they can't get in touch with us. So spontaneous and open is the other one, where we expect, we allow ourselves to have limits about how we do things. We are not out of control and we're not controlling. So there's a balance between how we bring some moderation into our life. And generally speaking, moderation doesn't come to us until we've had a little bit of recovery on board. And we see that in moderation, I mean, I viewed moderation as boring, but I came to understand that in fact there was a lot of freedom in moderation because I was not pulled from one end to the out of control or the other end of controlling. I came into the centre where I could just sit in my own space. So when we're talking about being with healthy, the green flags, we're really talking about being in a system where we can trust, where we can speak openly, we're allowed to feel our feelings and express them, and we're not shamed for them. And it's a tall order. And often people who come into South Pacific, like as clients, and their families will want to do the Family Education Day, which is the 1 day online psychoeducational offering that we give families in the first instance. And those families will come because they're trying to understand what's happened to their loved one. And there's a lot of psycho-ed about the model trauma, childhood trauma, and addiction. And I had a couple recently who came and did it because their son's not well, and she had no idea that she'd been enabling her son. Now I'm hoping and praying this young man comes into treatment and they get to do the family program with him, which is the 4-day offering. So when we're talking the red flags, so not healthy relationships, that they are the ones where we're talking about being, parents being absent, being enmeshed with a parent, or as the Americans call it, being parentified by a parent, where there's too much emotion. It's either aggression and raging, or we're being smothered, there's too much control over the child. And they're the difficulties when we're in those sort of situations. And when we want to foster a loving, supportive environment, it usually begins with one person in the system putting their hand up and saying they're going to get help. They're the one that actually will say, something not working in the family system, and I want to get help for me. And the most important one, when we talk about having healthy relationships, well, the first person you've got to have a healthy relationship with is you. And if it's often that thing where we go into a space where what I think of me is more important than what you think of me. And when I go to that space, then I walk into freedom. But often until we've done a body of work, we will still be concerned about what you think of me. And there's a lot of fear associated with stepping out of the box that you've been put in by the family. Generally, when people come into recovery in whatever form, mood disorder, addiction, trauma, PTSD, or complex PTSD, they will actually often want support from the family. And if they've got a halfway reasonable relationship with their family, they'll be able to ask for it. Now, the family won't know what to do, but if you can direct them to places where they can get some help for themselves, then it can start to crack open those places, because nobody wants to be in pain in their family system. So I'm very, aware that when we're talking about family, we're talking about the entire system. And you know as well as I do, if you've done any therapeutic work, that depending on where you come from and where you were, the family you were raised in, you'll have a legacy. It deeply impacts us how we then show up in our adult life. And when we show up in adult life, we can kind of get through it for a while. We might even use some substances to help us. But what we will find is that as we grow into adulthood, those same sorts of issues will start to turn up in our relationships, in our intimate relationships, and in our friendships. And we can trace those back to how we were parented and the roles we played in our family system. For example, the hero's the firstborn. Their primary parenting wound is often enmeshment, which is where they've taken care of the family, the mother usually, not always, but often mum. The scapegoat can be the second, third or fourth born. They also come from enmeshment, but they flip-flop between being disempowered and falsely empowered, whereas the hero just sits in falsely empowered. That's it, better than all the time. And the third one is when they're abandoned. So when a child's deeply abandoned, they become what we call the lost child. And that primary parenting wound is abandonment. Now those will show up in our relationships, and it's often, unless you've got serious addiction problems, it's often as we've started to create a family of creation, we may have children, You know, we've got friendships, we'd work, we've got all sorts of things going on. But what we've found is that we're flip-flopping between this love addiction, love avoidance, even in a loving and intimate relationship with our partner, irrespective of the sexual persuasion. And it's at that point, even though we want it to work, we know inherently, internally, that we're actually struggling because we have unresolved things from our history. Now, when we're talking about communication, trust, respect and boundaries, we are talking about having a deep level of trust with someone so that we can be authentically ourselves as us in the moment. And this is terrifying for people who've never actually done it before. At South Pacific, we offer all sorts of programs. Primarily, the first one we want you to probably do is the 3-week intake program where you look at your history, because that will set the tone for everything else that's to come after that. And the longer I've worked with the model, I have to say, Pia Melody's model, the more depth I see in it. So when we're talking about healthy relationships, we're talking about being able to stand in my own power, speak my truth to you about how I feel about something, not be totally concerned that you're going to reject me because I've said something that you might not agree with, but understand that there's enough trust and respect between the two of us and enough boundaries. You know, I mean, I'm not in a relationship like this, right? There's two people bobbing along together. I'm not doing this in my relationship. If I'm doing this in my relationship, I'm in all sorts of trouble. So the fostering of family connection and support, a supportive environment and conflict resolution comes from speaking my truth quietly, hitting a pause button if I get elevated, and being able to say what it is I need to say in the moment that it's happening. You know, one of the things that happens, and many of you will know this, when clients come into South Pacific, we'll often say to them, you know, there's 8 emotions. And we want you to, you know, just connect with how you feel. And most everyone looks at the 8 emotions with their mouth hanging out and going, I have no clue how I feel. Because we're not taught this stuff. And if we can feel the emotion that we have in the moment we have it, we will get the gift. So for example, anger, the gift is strength. Toxic level of anger is rage. Loneliness is an emotion. The gift is that we can reach out. Toxic level is despair and isolation. Fear is an emotion that keeps us safe. The gift of fear is wisdom. Toxic level is panic, terror and panic. And there's another 5 to go. I won't go through all of them. But when I started to actually be able to articulate what those emotions were, I found all sorts of things about how I could name what I was feeling and then share it with the people that were closest to me. When I reach a place in myself with healthy self-esteem, when I can set a boundary, and I'm not talking about a wall, when I can be spontaneous, open and moderate, when I can take care of my dependency needs and ask for my needs to be met and hear the no if I get a no, and also allow myself to be imperfect, then I'm walking into a lot of freedom, not only for myself, but in my family relationships and with my colleagues and with my friendships. So the overall well-being of families really comes to, instead of don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, it will be talk, learn to trust and feel. I mean, that's the simplest solution on the other side of it. I really want to thank you for being with us tonight. Facing codependency, thank you, Peter. It is the first step in all of those, learning all about the model and all about codependency. And I think many of us have lived with codependency and not realised that we have. And I think many of us have been set free in many ways when we've started to understand how whatever's occurred in our life affects us today, and then for us to take responsibility for it, seek help, and then step into some level of freedom. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, being with us, and I hope it's been a bit helpful. I think it's always challenging, family issues, but I do think it's always very helpful to be able to unpack our family history and to look at the family of creation that we have created. Diana said, what 12-step fellowships are good if we cannot get to SPA? I'm confused between ACOA and CODA. Adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families is the first one. They spend more time talking about their traumatic history. CODA is Codependence Anonymous. Is more, it looks at the history but not in such depth, and is more about how we're living now as a codependent person. CODA would probably be a good one to start with, and I think, hello Amy, Peter said, our family background shapes us. Think of an emotional scar, pain like a scar from that shaping. Healing through self-work might initially open old wounds, making them feel raw again. Over time, as we grow and learn, the wounds heal, leaving scars. These scars, while not painful, I've lost you. Where are we? There we are. Painful can occasionally be triggered, though less frequently over time. I absolutely agree with that. So, Lynn, thanks. You're in 9 months of recovery. I'm absolutely delighted about that. That's wonderful news. Yes, I think that can happen. Sometimes I get spoken to like I'm still drinking. They've got long memories, our families. That's true. It'd be helpful if they went to Al-Anon. They probably won't, though. Yeah, Susie, I think mother asked for money. I think I need to block her. I feel guilty if I don't help her. Yeah, that's certainly the codependency, particularly if your choice is not to help her in this instance, or the fact that you have helped her a lot and it hasn't changed anything. My mother was a chronic alcoholic. She used to ring me up and want money all the time. And I used to say to her, send me the bills and I'll pay the bills. So she'd send me the bills and I'd pay the bills, and that'd be the money that because I then knew she had a roof over her head and electricity, and, you know, I put some money in a bank for food. She'd probably drink it all though, but I learned a way to get around that so that I could support her in a healthy way, as healthy as possible, without giving away money that I knew she was going to use on alcohol and then getting resentful because I did it. Because that's the classic, isn't it? Codependence. You know, somebody asks us for something, we don't want to do it, we do it then, and then we resent them for doing it. It's like we've set ourselves up. So I really am grateful for you all logging on. Helen, the other 5 emotions. Okay, so the main emotions are, let me start again, love, joy, pain, loneliness, guilt, shame, fear. Oh, one more. I've gone blank. It's terrible. So love, joy, pain, guilt, shame, fear, loneliness. Sorry, forgotten the last one. It probably says something about me. But they're known, and if you Google them, you'll probably find them. And certainly we use them all the time at South Pacific. Yes, to a session. Is there, what's this one? Anger, resentment, anger. Thank you. Wonder if there are offerings at SPP to meet online with a family therapist. So a session. I'm not certain about that, but we'll get back to you, Renata. I'll pin that one. And you're welcome to reach out to us through our intake. We do online family therapy, or we did with COVID. We ran for a while online family therapy, and then face-to-face. I think we're pretty much back to face-to-face all the time now, but it'd be worth actually making a call to see what offerings could be given. Joy, yes, Joy's the other one. Thought I said that one, but maybe not. Thank you, Ben. The glasses look amazing. I'm pleased about that. Anger could be the last. Anger, yes, anger is the last emotion. Jerry, thank you very much. And there's the 1-800-063-332, which is the number to ring just to log a call, and someone from intake will get back to you. So, thank you for today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we are. Oh, yes, pain is sadness. Love, joy, shame, guilt, loneliness, anger, fear, pain. Beautiful. Glad that the Northern Beaches Mossman College is helpful. That's helpful. And thank you, Denise. And no, they're not a new pair of glasses. It's one of the things I play with in my life. Oh, Leah, online family program runs every fortnight. There you are. Thank you very much, Leah. Appreciate that. So look, you know, it's a fascinating thing, families, you know. We live with them. We fight with them. Thank you, Sam. Always good to see you. And at some point we need to come to some peace with them, whether we're in contact with them or not in contact with them. Whether they play a part in our life or whether they don't, you know. And one of the things that used to be said a lot back in the day, and I'm talking 40 years ago, they'd say, well, you've got to forgive your mother. I'd think, forgive her? My God, you've got to be kidding me. What I needed to do was grieve the childhood I never had before I could even get close to coming to a point where I could sit comfortably with her in terms of the way that she had been as a mother to me. Feel like I'm doing everything to connect. Would love a suggestion of what I can do to get him frozen since my son is gone. Yes, Lynette, we need to talk about that. So reach out and don't suffer alone, and please don't stay silent, because help's available. South Pacific's always here. We continue to do great work, and the fortnightly online session runs from South Pacific, Joe. So if you reach that 1-800 number, they can give you more information about it. I think between the 3-week program we run at South Pacific's wonderful. I think the Changes program where we're dealing with childhood trauma is wonderful. And I also think the family program is wonderful. Now, I'm not saying the day programs aren't great too, but I think those deep dives into those areas in the safety of a hospital is extraordinary. Thank you, Joe, and thank you very much for logging on tonight and for all your comments. There, Peter did a 5-week program. She hasn't looked back. Good on you, Peter. That's wonderful. So we're going to log off now. This will be recorded, of course, so feel free to re-listen at any time. Thanks for being with us tonight.